Hey, Bo, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Great, thanks. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Bo. And I just want to give you a brief introduction. Bo Bennett is the best-selling author of Logically Fallacious and seven other books. He's also an avid entrepreneur and founder of ebookit.com, a company that formats and distributes ebooks, print-on-demand books, and digital audiobooks for authors. It's great to have you, Bo.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so tell us about your background, how you became an author yourself, and then started your kind of publishing company, so to speak.
Sure. Well, actually, it was kind of an interesting story because I started out of frustration and aggravation. This was back in 2004 when I had my first book. I wrote my first book called Year to Success. It was a really thick book, 740 pages. It took me a full year to write this thing. And I'm talking like full time, 10 hours a day. It was a major project. And then I needed to say, okay, well, after I wrote it, now what do I do? I was completely new to the industry. I had no idea about what publishing was all about and where to go about it. But back in 2004, it was very different than it was today. So I came across a distributor who offered to print up my book. They suggested I print 3,000 of my books, which cost me about $30,000. These are massive hardcover books. And so I printed 3,000 of them. I warehoused them at their facilities, which cost me about like a $500 a month warehousing fee, like while my books were still there. And the book sold pretty well. I did the circuit. I did the tour through Barnes and Noble. So a speaking tour, and I read some of my books and I did book signings, but they weren't moving off the shelf. They weren't flying off the shelf or the warehouse for that matter. And it was costing me a lot of money. So then I decided to just kind of abandon that whole model and look into the whole self-publishing, doing it virtually, doing it through eBooks. And again, that time, this was probably maybe 2006. It was very new. So I explored a lot, and the process, it was a pain in the neck, and I did so much research and I couldn't find any easy way to do this. So after about 2, 3, maybe 4 years even struggling with it, actually it was up until 2009. So probably 3 years of struggling with this whole process, I decided to start my own company so other authors didn't have to go through this mess. So I started out as an author myself, and I published about 6 different books after that. But what I really ended up doing out of this whole thing was starting a company to help other authors go through this process.
That's awesome. So you self-published, I know you're the author of 8 books. Are they all self-published?
They are. I guess when we define self-publishing, it gets a little bit tricky now that we're kind of like a publisher. In a way, eBookit is a publisher. We also have under my main company, Archie Boy Holdings, I have a publishing kind of arm of that as well. So it's published under that. So I'm unlike probably most other self-publishers where I'm pretty well funded through the main company, Archie Boy Holdings. But in a sense, it's kind of a self-publisher in that it's not a major publishing firm that publishes my books.
Gotcha. And so what kind of distribution have you had for your books?
For the most part, they've all been distributed in paperback, in ebook, and audio. Pretty much all of them. I use Audible as the main distributor for all of my audiobooks, which goes through Amazon and iTunes as well, which is great. And then through our company, eBookit, we have relationships with virtually all of the main ebook publishers. And then we also use the printing source of Ingram Digital to distribute our print books. So I have really good distribution, at least throughout the United States and other parts of the world with the paperback. So it works out very well for us.
That's awesome. Are you still doing, book signings and kind of book tours and those kinds of things for promotion?
Not too much anymore. It was a really interesting experience, and it was a fun experience being able to call up all of the Barnes and Nobles within like a 60-mile radius of where I live and go on this book signing tour. A lot of great experiences from that, a lot of great memories, getting to meet people and talk to them and kind of share experiences and sign books. And it was also great because when you go on a book signing tour, the bookstore generally purchases like a dozen, maybe 2 dozen of your books, or sometimes even more. I think one time a Barnes & Noble bought 50 of them just to prepare for the foot traffic that would come in. And if you end up signing the books, you ask them, of course, but if they want you to sign the books, then they can't just return them back to the distributor. So it's like you sold 50 books, you sold a dozen books. So being able to do that alone, I got my book out there. And once you have your book and it's signed and you showed up, then mostly what they want to do is they want to sell that book. They don't want to keep it on their shelves. So they'll feature it in a nice spot in their bookstore. And it's just great being able to go into a major bookstore and see your book like smack right there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So, I mean, it sounds then like, your marketing strategy has evolved over the years, and, you're not focused as much on book signings and these kinds of things. So where is your focus in terms of marketing?
Most of the marketing I do now is obviously online. I don't do much in the real world because my real world nowadays is really in front of the computer, a lot of in front of the internet and dealing with other people and organizations virtually. But most of the marketing I do, it's hard to give like one fast rule or like what's one thing I do, because I have several different books and each book has essentially a different strategy based on the genre and based on the audience. I would say, like, for one example, my best-selling book, Logically Fallacious, one of my strategies has been to develop a really good information-rich website on logical fallacies. And if you Google any logical fallacy, Logically Fallacious will probably come up like first or second in the list in Google, which has been just amazing because people will go there, they'll get the free information, but they'll also see, hey, this guy has a whole book written on 300 logical fallacies. So if they're interested in what they see with like the one or two fallacies that they look up, then the chances are that they are going to buy the book. So whether they buy it directly from me through my website, they buy it through Amazon, they get it, the audio version, it doesn't matter to me as long as they buy the book. So it's been really good exposure.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So that's really cool. So you've got different strategies for different books, and that makes a lot of sense because different markets just have completely different, opportunities there, right? So
Sure.
I'd like to dig into this, Logically Fallacious website you have in a little more detail, because I think a lot of other authors can really learn from your experience here. So tell us about the website. Like, how did you build it? How big is it? How much time do you put into it? How does it work overall?
Sure. Well, let me tell you just a little background on that book, so you can kind of have some background information when I move forward. Logically Fallacious is basically a collection of 300 or so different fallacies, like logical fallacies. So it, unlike a chapter book that has like 12 or 20 chapters, it has, say, 300 different sections. Actually, it's more like 220 different sections with a whole list of the smaller fallacies in the back of the book. So the way that I wrote this book was essentially one of these fallacies at a time, and I did it on the web. I basically did it through a website. So by doing that, I was essentially building the website first and then creating the book second. So it made the process obviously a lot easier from transferring it over, but I've also done it the other way around where I write the book. Like the last book I did, I kind of wrote the book and then I transferred it over to the web. So but for Logically Fallacious, it was a matter of kind of making, I guess it is a website. I'm sorry, it is a web page. Like I have one web page for each of the fallacies, but people could also do it with like a blog post or something if you just want to think of it as a blog post per fallacy. So setting it up, it was a heck of a lot of work, especially when you have a website, a print book, and an ebook and an audiobook. You have to, anytime you make a change to any one of those, you have to kind of make it consistent through all those different formats. So it is a challenge keeping all those synchronized in a way. And that's pretty much done manually because of the different formats. But the extra work certainly pays off. It did take a lot of time, but once again, it was time well invested. I can't imagine spending the time any other way that would give me those kind of results in book sales.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, I mean, I've talked with a lot of other people, and I've had some experience myself with, turning kind of a website into a book. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes we've had problems with like duplicate content where, Amazon will say, hey, this information in your book is posted for free on this website, so we can't publish it. Have you had any issues like that?
No, fortunately not. And it's one of those things where my book is essentially completely free 100% on the website, but it's not in such a way that you can access it with one link. Again, it's a website, so you have to like navigate the structures, and you have to go and you have to look up like each fallacy is its own page. So that's why I think either Amazon didn't find out, or they just don't care, one or the other, because it through this process, I think what Amazon and other retailers are worried about is that they don't want to appear that they're ripping people off. You know, like, hey, this is available for free and now you're selling it to me. What's the deal? It turns out that if you make it free in a way that, let's say, people generally don't like reading from their computer screens, especially like an entire book. But if they can buy it, whether it be an ebook format or a paper or audio, whatever, they'll spend like the $10 to $20 to do it. At least that's what I found, because it's just so convenient. Of course, I don't know how many people actually didn't buy the book because they got the content they needed from the website. I'm sure there's a portion of that. But again, it's the overall big picture that you're most concerned with. But I think that the bottom line is, fortunately, I haven't run into that problem. And again, it probably is because it's not all available in one link or one download. I think that's what the retailers are most concerned about.
Yeah, definitely. So, what I've been told from Amazon staff is like, if it's like 5 or 10% duplicate content or more, it's definitely going to flag for them. And so, you've got 300, mini chapters of your book, and each one is a separate web page. So it's like 0.3% of your book. It's such a small percentage of your book that I don't think they're really catching that. And you made a good point that, it's your website is organized in a way completely differently from a book. So you can't just click one link and then click to the next chapter and click to the next chapter. You have to, have these different hierarchies where they have to click around your website to find the content. So
yeah, you would no reader would waste their time doing that. They would just spend $10 for the lousy ebook and
totally. Yeah, it would take so long to navigate it all, and it wouldn't all be in order in the same way.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. So tell us about some of your other marketing strategies for different books and how that worked out for you.
Okay. Well, one of my I'm trying to think of something that may be a little bit different. Year to Success. That's my first book that I started with, and now we're really going back to 2002, 14 years ago. The way I started this book is I created as an online course, basically, and this is before any online course software. I'm a programmer by trade, so I created some online course software essentially back in 2002 just for this website. Like Logically Fallacious, there's like one success article a day. That's why it's called Year to Success. There's 366 days that people read, and each day has some information along with like a little quiz, some action steps. So it was ideal for like an online course format. While I was writing the book, I was getting customers, readers to come along with me in this journey in real time. So I would write, let's say, day 1, and then I would release day 1. And I didn't have day 2 written yet. So then I'd have to write day 2. And it was also a great motivator to keep me going, because I know that I couldn't fall behind, because there were so many people following me wanting to get their 366 days and complete the course. So that was a great motivation to actually finish the course, which it worked. I did finish it within a year. And then I took all that information. Now, what I did a little bit differently there is I actually took the course down and I just put it in a book. In retrospect, I think that was a mistake. And in fact, I can't be certain, but I'm very confident it was a mistake, because I was building up a lot of momentum on the website, and that momentum just died. And I think that the interest in my book died as well. I think if I kept that course going since 2002, it would be phenomenal today. But I reopened the course about 2 years ago, and I created the course from scratch. It was a lot of work using some more modern, like high-tech online course software. And I use that basically as a marketing tool. It's my book, Year to Success, is listed in the search engines through the online course. So for example, if somebody wants perseverance, then if they Google perseverance, somewhere on that list, you're going to see like Year to Success, perseverance, like the online course article. So that'll take them there. They may get, depending on the chapter, I give away some of the content, definitely not all of it, like maybe 15%. And they would read the information, and then hopefully they would either sign up for the course, or they would say, hey, this comes in book format too. I'll go ahead and I'll click the book. So an online course, if I definitely suggest that to authors, if you have the kind of book and the kind of content that would translate well in an online course, go for it, especially if you have the talent, which nowadays with online course software, it's not that difficult to do it yourself, to be able to transfer that over into online course format. Then it's a lot of work. Again, it's labor intensive, but it's your labor and your work. And if you're willing to put your own work into your book, which most authors are, then go for it. I think it's been a really good strategy for year to success. The book.
That's awesome. That really does make a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, I almost feel bad for you for like taking that course down back in, I don't know when that was, but of course you started in 2002. I mean, 14 years on the internet. If it was really great content, which I know it is, imagine how long, how much people would promote that and how many people would see that over time. And so I think that's such a great lesson for everyone to learn is like, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Like, one of the things I always tell authors is like, never delete something. So, if you're editing a book and you take out a chapter, remove it from the book, but save it in a file somewhere, save that information somewhere, because you never know when you can use that content and how valuable it will be for people.
Yeah.
And, so that's just a great lesson to learn is, don't take stuff down off the internet if there's another way, because, over time is how things snowball and build over time. Maybe the next year you might not feel like you can achieve a lot, but the next 10 years, I guarantee you can achieve a massive amount if you're willing to put the effort into it and leave it out there and let people, consume your information and really benefit from it.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your publishing company, eBookit. And how did that evolve? How did you create that company and where are you guys at now?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that it was kind of a product of my frustration, not being able to, not being able to follow the rules of other people, like on the internet, about how to create an ebook and how to publish it, and putting it through their little tool that just made a mess of my Word document, like a complete mess. I spent easily like 25, 30 hours trying to format my Word document so it looked fine after it converted to an EPUB. And it was just a nightmare process. So I just said, there's got to be another way. And there was another way. With my programming ability, I was able to kind of create a lot of scripts that allowed us to take a Word doc and convert it into an EPUB using some popular format and algorithms that are already out there today, some software. So we kind of have this interesting balance of publicly available software along with a very customized set of scripts, as well as human interaction. The key to what we do is we have our human formatters that are from the United States. We don't send anything overseas. And the good part about that, the reason I mentioned that is because the communication is really important. And a lot of times our formatters work directly with the authors to say, okay, well, wait, what exactly do you mean by this? Do you want it in here, or do you mean to move it? So it's great having them to be able to understand and communicate with the customers and understand like how a book should be laid out and be able to answer those questions. So anyways, we started that company based on basically just the need for something, a service that wasn't being offered anywhere else at the time. And that's kind of where we are today. And we've been doing this for 6 years so far. It's been a very healthy, slow and steady growth. And we continue to grow on a regular basis, which is a good sign. It's refreshing, especially with all the crap going on nowadays. It's refreshing to know that reading is still important to people and they really do enjoy books.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So tell us kind of how the company works in terms of your fees. Do you take royalties? Do you pay advances? Do you charge just a la carte services? How does that work?
Well, depending on for what it is. For example, if people are going to use our distribution services and just don't want to use us for conversion, then we do keep 15% of the net. So if somebody makes $100 per month on all of their book sales, that's how much all the different retailers would send them total, then we keep $15 and we give them 85%. So it's 15% of the net per month, which we really like that model, and we're glad that we did it initially because our success is tied to our author's success. So unlike companies that might charge, let's say, I'll distribute it for you, just give me like $150 up front, or give me $20 per year or whatever. Those kind of flat fees, there's no real motivation there for the companies to really help the author sell. So we have this desire and motivation to work with our authors and help them in any way we can get their services, or help us, whether they have their own services that they provide for themselves, their own marketing strategies, or using our marketing services to put them together, to work together with our clients so they could actually go out there and sell and sell a lot of their books. And that's what we want to do.
Awesome. And so what does your customer, client, author need to actually bring to you to get the job done? They basically just send you, like a Word document that's not edited, or it's fully edited, or how's that work?
Yeah. Well, we tell clients, like, the best thing you can do is just give us a Word doc. We like Word docs that are done in the sense that we don't do all the formatting, send it back to the customer for their approval, and then they say, I don't like this chapter, I want to change it a little bit. I mean, we want you to be done with the book. So if you're done with the book, but let's say it's not, you read it over once, but you want us to do editing, we have that service as well. We have a couple different editing services. But most of our clients will give us a Word document, fully edited, ready to go, and we just do the format. We'll clean it up. We'll make sure it's nice. We'll make sure it looks beautiful when it on all the different devices, whether it be an iPad or the Kindle, or any of the emulators, like for PCs or Macs. And but we'll take anything. We've taken Word documents that are basically just scanned images of books. People have sent us hard copies of actual books. And one of the stories I like to share the most is we had this one client, an older gentleman, who sent us like years and years of notes. In a sense, they were notes, but they were actually written chapters, handwritten in a shoebox. So we had to work from that. And of course, that took a long time, and it was a little bit more difficult than our typical Word document, but it was interesting. And the fact is that we did that, and we could do that for the clients. So we just don't want people to hold back based on them not thinking that they're far enough or they're ready to go because they have to do something else. I mean, we'd like to tell clients, look, tell us what you have and let's work with you to get this done. Because a lot of people kind of get stuck at that end where, there's just a couple more things to do, or maybe the Word doc doesn't look pretty, but they don't realize that that's our job. We'll make it look pretty. So we like to work with clients no matter where they are.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So I know you've worked with so many authors in this way, as their publisher, coach, and mentor. What are the biggest mistakes you've noticed authors make that kind of just hold them back from success?
The biggest mistake, that's a tough. There's sometimes a lot of different mistakes that people will make, but I think the most common one. Yeah, because how you define biggest, in terms of financial loss or the most common. Let's go with the most common one, because this is something that's fairly easy to correct, but we see it all the time. It's when authors submit a really lousy looking cover for their book. They think that they could just like go into it. A lot of times they go into it like Word, like Microsoft Word, and they'll just like type in the title and stick like a picture that they got off of Google, like in the background, and that will be their cover, and they're like, hey, use that. As you probably know, the retailers for eBooks and print books obviously are much more complicated, but let's just say eBooks, there's a lot of criteria that you have to follow. You have to have the title of the book, the name has to match, you have to have the author name, you can't have a border on the book, it has to be a certain a DPI lines per inch, a certain kind of quality, it can't be like pixelated. But something that the retailers will accept is a really crappy looking cover that meets all those criteria. And that's unfortunate, because it's kind of like a reflection of the book itself. And the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, unfortunately, many people do. People will see that book and they'll see it as a reflection of the writing itself, or the kind of detail that the author put in the book. It's like, all right, if the author doesn't care enough about making at least a halfway decent looking cover, the inside of the book is probably crap as well. So like even us, like our service, we have a designer on staff. She does amazing work, and it's only $99 for like a really good professional ebook cover. and there are so many other services out there that charge that much, a little bit more, a little bit less. Maybe you have a graphic designer friend or something who's willing to do it for you for free. So whether you go with us or go with a third party or just ask a friend to do it, just make sure that the cover looks really good. Make sure it's an attractive cover, something that people are going to want to click on and then open up the book and read it, or even better, buy the book.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's great advice for sure. Okay. So then what about the biggest financial loss, like you mentioned? What is the biggest kind of financial mistake you've seen authors make?
I think it's with poor pricing. Pricing is a little bit tricky when it comes to any kind of books, but with eBooks especially, it's a digital download. And I think so many people feel that I have to talk to so many people out of this idea that they want to price their book at like $200. It's like, no, you don't understand the content in this book. This is going to make people filthy rich. I'm like, okay, I get that. You're very excited about your book. You think it's worth a lot. But I try to explain to them that you can't price a book at $200 like an ebook. You can't price it because even if the different retailers allow that high, and I think Apple allows maybe $200 or $300, Amazon might be a little bit lower, but you can't ridiculously price your ebook. It's not like this magical content that you see on that you used to see from maybe like 20 years ago that people would sell in membership only sites. This is content that people could generally get anywhere. And even if it's not, even if it is some of your magic formula, people aren't going to believe you anyway. The key is really to price it reasonably. And when we're talking about an ebook, generally keeping the 99-cent ebooks like in a different category, most ebooks fall between $2.99 and let's say $9.99, with the low end of the tail price like $9.99 to $19.99, and that might be for like a really good ebook, maybe like a textbook, and obviously textbooks are higher up there. But I would say, at least with the work that we do, probably about 80% of the books fall between the $2.99 and the $9.99 price point with ebooks, and that's generally where you want to be, because that's where we found that the most people will buy the books, and the author's profit will generally be the highest. So if let's say you price your book at $9.99 and you sell 100 books, great, you made let's say like $500. If you sell your book, try to sell it for $100, you might sell one book at that price, like per month, and you'll make $100. So you could see, even though it's a higher price, it's not going to make you more money. So you got to kind of think strategically. And the good thing about ebooks is you could always change the price too. You're not fixed at one price. So maybe you want to start out at a higher price point and then start to work your way down. But just try to get out of that mindset that your book is so valuable that people need to pay a lot of money for it. And just try to change that framing a little bit to the fact that, yes, your book is valuable, but people are only going to pay a certain amount for it. So if you want to get that valuable information to the different readers, you just have to price it more reasonably.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great advice for sure. And, it just makes sense. I mean, if you like look at it from the customer's perspective, look at it from the reader's perspective. And, I've read thousands of books in the past decade. I've been reading like average like 5 books a week for 10 years now. And so I spend a lot of money on books. And when I go to Amazon, I see an ebook that's like $25 or a hardcover book's like $25. It's like, I got this other book that was like used for like 1 penny plus $3.99 shipping by like written by a billionaire, like written by Sam Walton, like, full of just wisdom and nuggets of gold and great advice. And, to pay $30, $40 for another book, just because it's new, just because the author or publisher priced it so high, sometimes it's just like, do I really want to bother? Yeah. I will say one exception. I think the most expensive book I bought, other than like college textbooks, which were just absurd in terms of pricing, in my opinion, it was a book by not Warren Buffett, but by his business partner. I can't remember the name right now. Charlie Munger. His book, I can't remember what it is. I'll have to post in the show notes. But it's an amazing book. It's like $70. It was like a $70 book.
Wow.
And that's the most I've ever paid. But it's this big hardcover book, and it's full of actually similar to Logically Fallacious. He's got this whole list of not logical fallacies, but psychological fallacies that we have, kind of like mistakes,
cognitive biases
in the world. Huh?
Cognitive biases, probably.
Exactly, cognitive biases. He's got this great list of cognitive biases that are just really exceptional. So I would say it was probably worth the price, but I probably won't buy another $70 book again for a long time.
Right. And it's a different story if you're buying an actual physical book and a hardcover book. I buy books all the time that are, let's say, coffee table books that are just really impressive. The photography is amazing. And when you buy a book like that, that's maybe like 1 inch thick, 2 inches thick, and it's full color, you expect to pay a lot more because you're not just buying the content, like the textual content itself, but now it's something visual. It's something a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, physical books are different.
Mm-hmm. Totally, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if it was $7 for the ebook, that'd be pretty tough sell for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So any last words of advice for folks listening, Bo?
Last words of advice. I would say when it comes to marketing your book and publishing your book and you're ready to get out there, you got to keep two things in mind. One, that you need some money to work with. And two, you need some time. Now, depending on how successful you want your book to be, you should have like a lot of money and a lot of time. That's the best combination. If you don't have a lot of money, then you need a lot of time. If you don't have a lot of time, then you need a lot of money. So it's kind of like a scale with time on one side and money on the other side. And that's kind of like the very simple formula to successfully publishing your book. A lot of the marketing strategies, we have a free ebook on our site that you could just go to ebookit.com. You'll find 101 marketing strategies. That's one of my latest ebooks that I released. And again, it's a free download, but the concept of that is here's 101 different ideas that you can do to market your book. Some of them will work for you, some of them won't. Some of them will apply to a fiction, some to a nonfiction. But the point is, many of them are free and won't cost you a penny, but they will take time. And many of them you can hire other people to do for you professionally. So that essentially costs money. So if you have some money to work with and you have some time, that's the best. But just keep in mind that you need one of those two. So many people come to us with the unwillingness to put a lot of time into marketing their book and the unwillingness or the inability to pay any money for the marketing. So you're kind of just putting it out there, and that's good. You know, getting it out there and putting it on Amazon, that's definitely one of the most important steps, and the other retailers. But they're not going to fly off the virtual shelves that way. You need to put marketing behind it. And that comes either as a result of time or money.
Absolutely. Great advice for sure. So where can people find out more about you and your books, Bo?
Okay, if you go to bobennett.com, that's where you can find all about me and the things I do in my books. That's BOBENNETT.com. If you want to find out about my company, ebookit.com, just go to ebookit.com and you can find out all about the things we do and the services we offer. Always happy to help new and aspiring authors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bo. Appreciate it.